when this slide, I'm going to try to...
Comes all the way back?
Yep, all the way back. So you have basically, as Ryan said it best, it ends up being really top heavy. So as Newton said, right?
Yeah.
Every reaction or action has equal and opposite reaction. So when the projectile leaves the barrel, obviously the slide goes to the rear in a very violent form, and that's when you get that muzzle rise. And the higher that is, the more it's going to go.
Welcome back, everybody. Clint today with Classic Firearms. We've got Kaya back with us.
What's up, guys?
And we're here to talk about bore axis and why it matters. Is it important? What is it? So let's just hop right into it. What is bore axis? First of all, that's A-X-I-S, not like you're accessing the bore. But let's just go ahead and grab the Shadow Systems DR920 really quick and just take a look. When I have a nice high grip, as you should, on this pistol, and I've got my finger pretty much straight and off the trigger, as you see right here, where the barrel is sitting in relation to the gun and where that ultimately is sitting in relation to my grip and in my hand, right? The ideal placement for the bore would actually be a little bit lower. The ideal placement would actually be kind of like right in here.
Yep.
If we could get it there, right? And it's kind of where the Rhino is. It does a really good job at getting that nice and straight or nice and low,
Yep.
right? So what does that do for you though? Right? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, the ergonomics behind it. I guess you could say the science, right? If we want to get real technical, the word science. No, the science behind it, quite simply, is you've got energy transfer right from ultimately like the projectile hitting the target, but before that, you've got the projectile leaving the barrel, and you've got, again, a small explosion taking place right here. And so this slide is going to reciprocate. Right, that's going to come back just as you see right here every time you pull the trigger, right? And then, of course, on the last round, it'll lock back as you see here. The higher that is, that's more reciprocating mass that's coming off the hand and going to cause a little bit more of a muzzle flip, right? Well, the lower that is, that's going to be less material that's kind of going over your hand and all. So take a look at like the CZ Shadow, right? That's got a pretty nice low bore axis to it. Take a look as where it is in line to my finger and the barrel. You've got that, which is also really slim. You have a very slim slide. CZ kind of knew what they were doing with this guy. It's a really heavy gun on top of that. Great for competition and all. So that added weight with the slim slide, which is less reciprocating mass with a lower bore axis, all of that is going to take pretty much compile all of that, and now you're going to get yourself one very flat, smooth shooting gun, right? What are some of the taller, bore axes that we have here?
Well, we've got the, obviously, Magnum Research 5080 Desert Eagle over here.
So,
and you can tell,
yeah.
I mean, when I'm holding this thing, this is the barrel, guys.
Yeah.
It's quite high up there.
Yeah.
And as Clint just explained, when this slide, I'm going to try to...
Comes all the way back?
Yep, all the way back. So you have, basically, as Ryan said it best, it ends up being really top heavy. So as Newton said, right?
Yeah.
Every reaction or action has equal and opposite reaction. So when the projectile leaves the barrel, obviously the slide goes to the rear in a very violent form, and that's when you get that muzzle rise. And the higher that is, the more it's going to go. That's why when we talk about, be really high up on the beaver tail right here, right? Tang, if you hold it like this, it's gonna be even higher bore axis for you. So you want to bring your hand as high as possible to have a proper grip and lower that bore axis as much as possible to have a better recoil control.
Right, and then the caliber you're shooting obviously makes a difference as well. When you've got the 50 Action Express of the Desert Eagle, you're gonna have some recoil. Now you got this tank of a gun also, and a high bore axis. If you take a look at the USP 45, which is renowned as one of the best pistols in the world, it does have a high bore axis, but it is chambered in 45, more of a thumpy type of guy. But it does allow me to get a little bit of a high grip on it, but sitting into relation where the barrel is, it's still, pretty high. But with all that being said, it still shoots pretty well, still feels good. The internals help, recoil or manage that recoil a little bit, which is kind of nice. Another one that's got a pretty high bore axis, the SIG 226, which is renowned for being kind of a taller gun. If you take a look at the side picture here as to where you'd be grabbing, that's sitting pretty high up. However, it's also a very proven, combat effective type of pistol and one that is really well liked. So is it just a change in technology? You know, is it that, you know, these guns, all these guns are a little bit older, you know, outside of the FNX, which is probably one of the newer ones in comparison to all of these guns. But you'll notice too, sits up pretty high, but it does feel really, really good to shoot, you know? So you take all of that into consideration, and it's just kind of funny, a lot of your combat guns do have that higher bore access, right? And I think a lot of that has to do too, I mean, sight picture is one thing. If the sights are sitting a little bit higher, they're gonna come naturally to pick up a little bit easier as well. For me, that's why I love my suppressor height sights, like on my Glock guns and everything else, you know, and actually on all my guns. But, you know, I think that's why Glock, I think, is so popular, or Shadow Systems, or all these different types of Glock clones and takes or whatever, because you still get that low bore access. You still have, for a very reliable and accurate pistol, and you know, people carry it combat duty and all that type of stuff all the time. So a bore access, it matters, right? Especially if you're shooting competitively. Like you take a look at the two CZs that we have here, the Shadow and the P10F. You're gonna want something, again, lower bore access. Typically you have a little bit brighter sights that pick up a little bit more natural, so that way you can get on target a little bit quicker as well. You have less reciprocating mass typically in your competitive guns also. That's why people get slide cuts and serrations and everything else also.
Yeah, that's what the weight is very important, right?
Yeah.
So you have those like, some people call it like plastic guns, right? Or polymer guns like Glocks. Of course, the polymer body is going to be not really heavy at all. Here you have this metal slide that's just going backwards very violently. So because there's not much weight here, it's top heavy, it wants to go up. So you're gonna have perhaps more felt recoil when compared to that CZ Shadow 2 that we have over there. It's really heavy, metal body and slimmer slide, as you said. It, with the lower bore axis, it helps out. But even if that one had a higher bore axis, because of the massive body and heavy
the
weight,
weight of the gun,
you're gonna still have a less felt recoil compared to polymer guns.
Right. And I think one way we can really just show this is to do just that, show you guys. So let's take a couple of these to the range, let's go shoot some, and let's see if we can actually identify less, more, muzzle rise. How can we convey felt recoil when it's on a video? Let's go do it.
Just gonna go ahead and get my Rick Grimes off here, starting off with the 357 Magnum Colt Python. So just notice I'm gonna be shooting one-handed, and then I'm gonna switch over to the Rhino, which has a much obviously lower bore axis as we've been talking about. So let's go ahead and kick this off and see how this thing feels. Perfect, all right. Obviously we got a little bit of a flash there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab this guy. Go ahead and pocket that one really quick. Pocket Python. All right, now let's go ahead and try the Rhino. Let's see if you guys see much of a difference as far as recoil. Well, there is a obvious difference to the shooter. First of all, again, notice that blast that we're getting is pretty freaking cool. This, notice again where the barrel sits in correlation to the hand, straight back. I am noticing no muzzle rise whatsoever. It's pretty impressive. Obviously, I'm feeling my hand kind of move around a little bit, but it's not like a break wrist type of thing. It's more of just like the whole arm is getting involved. I mean, it's an interesting feeling. 10 out of 10 would recommend. You get to see it here. High versus low bore axis with the 357 Magnum. Now Kaya's got a couple more he wants to show you.
All right guys, I've got the 6 Hour P226 right here. It's got a really high bore axis compared to a Glock, which I'm gonna shoot after this. You can tell it's got top heavy, right? Let's see how it is. I'll shoot two-handed, just regular hold, and let's see how it is. Okay, so it's not bad. It's not bad at all. But I'm gonna shoot the Glock. Let's see how that compares. It did feel like the nose wanted to kind of rise up a little bit, but let's check the Glock. So, all right. So this is loaded, good to go. We got the Shadow Systems DR920 over here, but pretty much a Glock over here. So.
Okay, there's definitely a noticeable difference, but it's not that much. From P226 6 Hour to Glock or Shadow Systems, there's not much, but the Glock definitely was better on managing the recoil. It felt better in my hand. So let's go back to Clint. Clint's got a couple more guns to show you.
So now we've got the CZ Shadow 2, which is a super low bore, in comparison to the Strike 1, which very low bore. So let's go ahead and start off with the CZ and see how this guy shoots and feels. Just all about the recoil here. Okay. There's something about a CZ Shadow though, I will say that. That feels pretty dang good, but it's something as low as this guy. It's also pretty light. Keep in mind this has a full metal frame, significantly heavier than what we've got with the Strike 1 here. But let's go ahead and try it out now and see how this guy feels. Okay. Oh wow. That's different. But I gotta tell you, from what I'm feeling in comparison to the CZ Shadow 2, the Blue Grip Wonder over here, they're very similar. Like, really hard to tell, which I think actually speaks volumes kind of for this guy because of how much lighter it is. Yeah, and that trigger, that flat face trigger, that's just, I mean, yeah, you just saw that, right? Like, just, I mean, that is a super short reset, super short pull and take up. So all in all, just pretty impressive. And if I try to line these guys up, you know, just the best that I can here. I mean, there they are right at the muzzle end, and I'm just lining up the top sights, you know, the top. Also, you've got a much longer sight radius on the Strike 1 than you do the actual CZ here. So pretty interesting stuff. Again, striker fired versus hammer fired, phenomenal trigger in both. Both of them feel great. So yeah, again, we got super lightweight, heavy boy. Obviously, again, for competition, this all kind of makes sense. It just really comes down to personal preference, but as far as shooting feels go, they feel very similar. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, Kaya, as far as so what are your takeaways?
All right, so I was watching you shooting the CZ and then the Arsenal Strike 1 speed thing.
Yeah.
Dude, they looked exactly the same to me. Like when you were firing them, I couldn't tell the difference. I don't know. Maybe you guys could, but I couldn't.
Yeah, we are going to put like a collage up that's going to show all the guns that we just shot side by side, so that way you get a representation and a side-by-side comparison of everything that we just shot. Yeah. So you can see these higher bore axis guns are going to be rocking a little bit further. They're going to have a little bit more snap to them probably, even though we are shooting nothing but 115 grain 9mm today. Yeah. It's all the same stuff. I think it's all PMC bronze, you know, ammo that we just had laying around in the warehouse. So